right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, up on TSN 2 all afternoon. Bryan Hayes, Frankie Corrado. What's happening, Frank?
Not much, buddy. You don't like that song to come into? Not a good intro song for you.
It doesn't get the blood boiling enough.
You need Motley Crue.
Yeah, I got to get something rocking. Yeah. I just had a lot of time off. I'm back. I got a lot of things that I want to get off my chest. And good track. Not disputing, good track. If that was like the intro for the third segment of the show, it might be a different story.
Yeah.
But
never again, JP.
Yeah, JP. I think we gotta take that one out of the rotation to begin the show.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a mellow track.
Yeah, it's third hour. It's like we've
run 2
laps around the track. We've hit some different topics, and now we're going to bring it home.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we need to start with a bang.
We got to start with a bang. And it's good to be back. You know, I, again, was off for a while. We had the holiday yesterday, which is really it's just there. It's a good one. I appreciate a holiday in August, but there's no name for it. There's no history to it.
What is it called? The Civic Holiday?
I have no idea if there's a name.
Civic Holiday.
Right.
We'll take it, though.
I'll take it, right? But you got Canada Day, you got Labor Day, you got Victoria Day. What the hell was yesterday?
I don't
know what that was.
They just needed something in the summer to give everyone a day off.
Yeah, I fully support it. I'm not against it. I was talking to my wife about that. I'm like, I don't think there's a name. There's nothing to it.
No.
There just happens to be a Monday in August that we all decide we're going to accept.
And we needed it.
And no one complains about it.
We needed it, we got it, and we take full advantage of it.
It's a great scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great scene. And, I return to the Jays, who are red hot, the Angels, who are a mess. There's deals going down in the National Hockey League.
Serious deals.
Right? I saw you on SportsCenter. Was that last night you were doing SC or the other night?
Ago. Yeah.
Yeah, the Erik Karlsson deal where Kyle Dubas is moving and shaking.
You had a tweet about that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. That thing went viral quickly because
you had some responses, too.
I got a lot of responses. you noticed that with X, right?
Yes, with X.
Formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah.
You can tweet about a lot of different things. And the more provocative you are, the more of a response you're going to get. And I didn't tweet this out about Dubas thinking it was going to provoke people necessarily. But what I recognized pretty quickly, and I think I knew this anyway, is Kyle Dubas is a very polarizing guy, incredibly polarizing. And if you were attached to the Maple Leafs in any capacity at any point in your career, especially if it's recently, people are going to react to that. And there it is up on TSN 2. After the Karlsson deal went out, I was actually up north, and I just tweeted out, Kyle Dubas has become the NHL's pace car for making moves. From bunt singles to grand slams, he's got the stones and vision to pull off deals. He's never shy. Now, the reactions immediately were from every possible angle on that. I want to clarify, that was not me suggesting he's the best GM in the league. I do not believe he's the best GM in the league. That is not suggesting all the moves he makes are good moves. Far from it. He's made a lot of terrible, terrible trades. But when you speak of activity and a guy who seems to be in on everything and a guy who gets his mindset on something and finds a way to get it done, I stand by that. I think Dubas, you look at what he did at the trade deadline, you look at the moves he made on July 1. Now, those were not trades, but a lot of turnover in Pittsburgh immediately. And he was hot on the trails of Karlsson, and he found a way to make that work.
I had an experience reading that tweet because X is the way it is now. You don't know who's real and who's fake. There's a lot of parody accounts. I had to click on the profile and make sure it was actually yours because I was like, why is someone pretending to be Hayes right now?
I'm not verified anymore.
I'm not verified. About Kyle Dubas and how he's the pace car in the NHL for trades. Right. I couldn't believe my eyes. And then Craig chimes in, and he's like, no, Kelly McCrimmon is the pace car. But I will say this, man. It is the Kyle Dubas show. He's the president. He named himself the general manager.
Right.
He has no one to answer to. He is going to do whatever he wants. And I wonder now if the moves that he's making here in Pittsburgh, these are the moves he was trying to make in Toronto, but he couldn't get it done for one reason or another. But it's his show now.
Well, it is. But what I think you need to probably supply when it comes to context of this conversation. And I think what also needs to be accepted here in terms of what Dubas is dealing with in Pittsburgh that I think he was dealing with here is in Pittsburgh, he does not have the ability to trade core pieces. He doesn't have the power to do it. He can't trade Sidney Crosby even if he wanted to. He does not have the power to do that. I don't believe he'd have the power to trade Evgeny Malkin. Chris Letang possibly, but I think that would really upset the apple cart. I don't think he could. Now, they'd all have no trades, no movements, but I'm talking ownership and I'm talking legacy pieces. Even if he wanted to change the core in Pittsburgh, he did not have the power to do that. I think the same thing applied in Toronto. I think, interestingly enough, he's dealing with a very similar scenario. I think that's ultimately why Pittsburgh probably went after him, because they realized it's a very different situation, or it's a very similar situation. I think he bought into the idea that he wasn't moving off a core piece in Toronto. I don't know if he still believed in that vision at the end. I kind of get the impression there may have been some butting heads there.
Right.
I believe Shanahan still abides by that philosophy. And based on the reports out there, they're going to try to sign Matthews long-term. They're going to try to sign Willie long-term. Marner's still here. Tavares is still here. Keefe is coming back. Morgan Riley's coming back. It would suggest to me that Brendan Shanahan is still a believer in keeping that core and working around it, and that's effectively what Brad Treliving can work with. And that would be the difference in terms of, comparing Dubas to Vegas. And Craig brings up a very good point. It's tough to argue that Vegas is incredibly active. But I think that started with their owner, Bill Foley, from day one. Loyalties for losers. Move on from anyone you have to. If there's an upgrade out there, chase it, go get it. And then that filtered down to George McPhee, and then eventually got to Kelly McCrimmon. With Dubas, I think in terms of his attacking the roster when he was in Toronto and now in Pittsburgh, again, he's working under a different guideline that there are 4 or 5 guys you're not allowed to touch. You got to work around all the edges here. And that's what he was operating with in Toronto, and that's what he's doing now in Pittsburgh.
It's interesting because he brings in Karlsson, who's 33, and all those guys are, 35, 36?
Yeah.
Like, they're all in that ballpark. So it makes sense that they're all going to try and go for it together, right? Because if you have a team where it's too contrasting, you have, like, a crop of young guys and a crop of old guys, it doesn't work. Like, it's always going to be segregated in the room, on the ice. It's just the way it is. But what he's done here now is he's going to give it's got to be at least a 2-year run here to try and make something happen with this group. So if this year doesn't go well, it's got to be next year. They got to give it another go in 2 years. And then he's bought himself more time with the Penguins down the road, because then it turns into, all right, now I need a couple years to strip this thing down and acquire the pieces for the future, acquire the cap space. Then it's another year, 3-4 year process to say, now we need to build it back up. Let me see my vision out. Like, this guy bought himself 6-7 years.
Possibly a decade.
Yeah,
possibly a decade.
This whole process from trying to salvage every last bit of this core group to the next group that comes up in that Penguins organization could be a decade. And he's basically built out that runway here now.
Well, I think that's exactly what's happened here. I would assume Dubas, when speaking with ownership down there, said they have probably a 2-year window. They do not have a 4-year window.
Even though those guys are under contract for 4 years,
they do not have the
not
full 4 years.
4-year window.
No, and I'm not convinced they're a playoff team right now. I do think they're better today. I think the Karlsson deal eventually will be a disaster because it's $10 million, and at the end of the deal, who knows what he's going to bring to the table. And again, it's just adding more, big dollar core players, and I don't believe the philosophy is going to work. I don't believe they're going to win a cup in the next 2 years. Could they make the playoffs? Yes, they absolutely could. They just missed this past year. If everything breaks their way, I like the Riley Smith deal. Obviously you sign a Chari. Now you bring in Karlsson. They're a better team. Pittsburgh's a better team today than when Dubas took over. But you got about a 2-year deal here where I'm assuming he pitched, I'm going to do everything I can for 2 years to try to find some glory. And then I think you're right. The final 2, it's like we're going to be a disaster, and there's a very good chance in 3 or 4 years they're the worst team in the league by a substantial margin. Like, nothing in the cupboard. The guys are done. We got nothing here.
Yeah.
Nothing here.
He's never been in that spot, though.
No, exactly. He inherited a very good team when he took over for Lou Lamoriello.
Always had a good team. They're probably going to be a very good regular season team in Pittsburgh. They've always had good regular season teams here in Toronto. And at some point, it's going to be the very first time that Kyle Dubas can actually build a team from scratch, from the bottom up, like bottoming out. He's never done that before. So add that to your sales pitch. I've never done that before. You guys don't know what that's going to look like. You know what I mean?
I know, but that's going to take some patience, man.
Yeah.
Like, that again is...
But it's coming.
It's absolutely coming. Like it is coming in Pittsburgh. 2 or 3 years from now, it is going to be a stark reality. And I think they know it. They're embracing it. They're accepting it. And I don't argue against a 2-year window where this is who you are, because you've had an unbelievable 15 years.
Always the
Your
cream
15
of the crop.
years have been great.
Always the elite team, always like the benchmark for everyone else around the league. But I don't blame the Penguins for trying to like squeeze every last bit out of this, because if Ottawa and Buffalo are going to make the playoffs, force them to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't just say, "Oh, they're coming, so I think we're just going to roll over and pack it in." They're young, they're very good, but they are unproven. Like, make them force you to miss the playoffs. Like Boston, think about all these teams that are going to be on the bubble next year. You're going to have Boston, Pittsburgh, Islanders, Ottawa, Buffalo. Detroit, I think, is a little further back. I think Florida could be on the bubble. Like, there's going to be a lot of good teams that miss the playoffs, and there's going to be a lot of teams in that same vicinity. Do you buy Columbus being in with the? Like, I think Columbus is closer to Detroit.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think they're taking that big of a jump.
But man, it's going to be like there's going to be a lot of teams vying for those 2 wild card spots in the East.
It's going to be a race in the East. And it's going to be tough.
And San Jose getting rid of Karlsson and only getting the protected first-round pick just goes to show you how much general managers value cap space over futures and picks and prospects. Right. Give me the cap space. Number one weapon you can have in this league right now.
Yeah, exactly. It has been for quite some time. That's what you get in a hard salary cap world, and especially with a lack of jump over the last few years because of COVID. There's been no flexibility. And Karlsson, it's an indictment on the league and the way that they operate, that the guy can put up one of the great offensive seasons of all time, and it's effectively a salary dump.
Yeah.
Like, there were 1 or 2 teams in the league that would take him on. You had absolutely no leverage. Like, the deal, it's not a good deal. Like, San Jose got nothing for Karlsson except for $10 million a year off the books for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
And they understand they're terrible. They're going to be terrible for another 2 or 3 years. Like, San Jose is going to be an awful team. And they're building towards a 3 or 4 year plan, and they're going to try to accumulate whatever they can, including as much cap space as they can get. But it's difficult. It's complicated to do business beyond the draft and free agency. And I think that's becoming clear with where the Raptors are at. All these reports out there about Pascal Siakam, and reports indicating it's inevitable he's going to get flipped. I saw Shams Charania of The Athletic tweeting out details of what was on the table that the Atlanta Hawks are willing to offer him, and it's an incredibly underwhelming offer. But I think what's become clear here is Masai and company have overplayed their hand.
Yeah.
Because this is a deal you had to move. You had to move on this when you had leverage if you were committed to trading Siakam, which you still could between now and the trade deadline if you want to. But if they have a commitment to moving on from him, that's got to happen at the draft or in and around free agency. Business is done. Teams are like checked out. They've got their rosters. And if they're going to acquire your guys, they're probably going to realize they have the leverage if you're the one desperate to move on.
It's really strange because we always give this management group a lot of credit with the Raptors for having a vision and following through on that vision. The vision has been a little blurry, man, the last year or so with like the way they handled the trade deadline last year, holding on to Fred, not moving him. Now you're in a situation with Siakam where it's like you probably could have seen this coming at some point, right? And here we are. Like, I don't know. It's gonna be it's difficult for sure, and it's gonna change the way this team looks in the long run.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, say what you want about Pascal, like he's the best player they have on this team. And this is a star-driven, top-tier-driven league. And if Siakam's not a part of your program moving forward, you're accepting that you're going to take a big step back.
Yeah, and what does that mean for Scotty Barnes? Like, as much as Scotty Barnes is a good young player, these guys need good players to play with.
Yeah.
Like, one thing is for sure, after coming off Rookie of the Year, he's not the centerpiece yet. He's not that guy yet. And he needs, like, Siakam. He needed Fred, but severely underachieved this team this past year.
Well, and also to your point about the front office, and it appears as if there's either a lack of vision or it's a flip-flopping vision. They were not far off the bottom of the pit leading up to the trade deadline. And they went in and bought on Pirtle and then felt an obligation to sign Pirtle. But now you lose Fred for nothing, and now you might just move on from Siakam because you've made the decision that you have to because you don't want to sign him long term, and you're probably going to be bad anyway. And they've given up that pick to San Antonio. Like it's like, guys, everyone knew you weren't good enough. The whole world was telling you leading up to the trade deadline, move on these guys, move off them, accept you're not that good, take a step or two back and build towards 2025. And Masai and Webster, I think they were too proud. I think they wanted to believe in their people and they wanted to believe in this process. And maybe they've come to a conclusion. Maybe it's better late than never, but maybe they've concluded, we just don't have it here.
Right.
Like we got to move in a different direction. But it's pretty clear if that's the case and that's the way they're thinking, they should have moved in that direction 6 months ago.
And Siakam's next deal, if he's all NBA, that's like the
massive
the super
money.
Max, 304,
Jaylen
whatever.
Brown plus.
Yeah, it's massive money. And listen, the Raptors do well. They can obviously afford that. But it just goes to show you that in sports, it takes more than just like a big bank account to make things happen. Look at the Mets. Look at the Padres. Like, you need some kind of vision and following through on that vision. You can't just throw dollars around like, we're going to be good because we spent X amount of money this year. Like, it needs to be a cohesive group.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with this Siakam stuff. Obviously, he's been linked to a couple of teams. It seems like Atlanta in particular. But based on what Sharania is reporting, like incredibly underwhelming. And not surprisingly, the Raptors turned it down.
Yeah.
But they're losing leverage by the day. If the league knows they want to move on Siakam, and Siakam's got 1 year left on his deal, Pascal's not a top 15 player in the NBA, so you have to be reasonable in terms of what other teams believe he is. He's a very good player. He may be somewhere between 16 and 25 in the NBA. That's an impact guy.
Yeah.
But like if he's going to Atlanta, he's playing behind Trae Young. Like that's still Trae's team. Siakam's going to nestle in as a number 2 there. I think they'd work pretty well together.
Which is probably great for Siakam.
I think it'd be actually ideal for Pascal.
Looks great in that situation. I wonder how ugly it could get this year. Like he starts the year with the Raptors and they're not playing well and everyone's kind of pissed off. Like,
right.
How ugly does that get? And then he's like, listen, am I going to miss all NBA here? Like he could leave a lot of money on the table here. Like if he doesn't get off to a good start this year and get things going.
Yeah, I'm bracing for a possibly fascinating September in Toronto where the Raptors could report and the Siakam situation is hanging over the whole camp. The Leafs are going to report, and if Matthews in particular is not signed by day one, that's going to be the story is, okay, you've gone through the whole summer, and now we're into camp here.
Yeah.
What is happening? I don't think it will overshadow camp because they're still expecting to have a very good season. The Raptors are not in a championship contention window. It's a different context because with Siakam, if the belief is the team wants to move off him, the Leafs don't want to move off Austin. No. And the reporting has been pretty substantial that the two sides are going to come to terms at some point.
Don't you keep hearing any day now?
But if it gets to day one of camp and it still hasn't happened,
right?
At some point, some sort of alarms are going to go off here in the city and be like, what is happening here?
You guys just had all summer to do it. And all we keep hearing, guys, it could be any day or it could be this. Like, it's like, okay, what is the holdup now, right?
Yeah.
Like, then people start poking around and asking questions, and that's how it turns into a bigger thing. I agree with you. I don't think it overshadows camp just because I think there's a lot of intrigue over this team, the Leafs, coming into camp. Like, what are they going to be? Are they better up front? Are they thinner on the back end? Like, there's so many other question marks with this group. Like, I don't think the back end is exactly finished yet.
That's not a cup winning defense score.
It's not. You're expecting a lot out of Klingberg to get back to where he was in Dallas. I think you need Timothy Liljegren to take a big step. Like a big step. He needs to be like top 4 all-around player, all situations guy. Like he's got to show that for 82 games. Maybe he can do it. There's potential there, but that's one of the storylines. Is Mark Giordano going to look like a 40-year-old defenseman, right? Like there's a lot that's going to be following this team in camp.
You got new personalities too, right? Like when Domi shows up for the first time and Bertuzzi and Reeves, there's going to be a number of different stories that will naturally pop up, but it will be hanging over the team, the Matthews, Nylander situation, the Siakam situation. And then you got the Jays, who I believe will be in a playoff spot. You know, I'm bullish on where the Jays are at. Even with Bichette out, for them to roll into Fenway and sweep the Sox without Bo, and then win last night in a situation where Ryu has to come out of the game and their bullpen holds it intact. Cleveland's offense is not great. But you look at Tampa, we just saw the news prior to coming on. It sounds like Shane McClanahan is going to be done for the year. So the Jays are only 4 back at Tampa. They're a half game back at Houston. Like, it's not only about the rear view, where Seattle's red hot now. I think they've won 5 in a row. But Boston's fading, New York's fading, the Angels are a mess.
Yeah.
You know, I think the Jays are more looking forward.
Is Babe Schneider a player or what?
I'll tell you what.
Babe Schneider.
Babe Schneider.
Babe Schneider.
The guy's vibe is easy to like, to gravitate towards. He's got the shades. He's got the stash. He comes up looking to hit. He has a motor. That was an incredibly cool story.
Awesome.
Like, incredibly cool story. For him to hit a home run his first AB at Fenway Park is amazing.
Love the fist bump after in the dugout, like the Super Mario kind of looking thing.
Incredible.
Wicked.
Couple home runs. What do you have, 9 hits over the weekend?
9 for 13.
First player in MLB history to do that, I believe, in his first 3-game series.
He's a 28th round pick out of high school ball.
Amazing. And yet, they bat him leadoff last night, and I couldn't believe they made that decision.
Things move quick, eh?
Like, that to me, it was so unfair to him. And, you know, he goes 0 for 4 last night, a couple of strikeouts. Everyone was striking out last night. Like, everyone. Without Williams can pitch, man. He's a monster, and he throws heat.
Yeah.
And they won the game, so this is not, I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill here. But the guy was riding buses like a week ago, and now he's batting leadoff after a big weekend.
It's
probably not the best decision.
And it's kind of awkward, too, for him because he knows that. It's like the guy that gets called up from the minors, and he plays pretty well. Guy moves the puck pretty well. He scores a goal, gets a couple apples, goes to the rink the next day. He's on the power play.
Yeah.
And he's looking around. He's like, I should not be on this power. Like, what are they doing here?
And the boys know, too, that the rest of the team's like, this can't be serious. Like, we don't even know the guy's name yet. Like, half the team thinks it's David Schneider.
David Schneider.
And the guy's batting leadoff.
Yeah.
Not the best.
Not the best. And now the Grappa, you're saying that the lineup is out for the game tonight in Cleveland?
Well, at least George Springer is finally hitting the baseball again after going 0 for 35. Like, that's pretty welcome news as well, man.
He had a big weekend in Boston.
Yeah, he needed that.
Yeah,
he needed that in a big way.
So the lineup, it is out, and he's not even in the lineup tonight.
No Babe?
The Babe is not in the lineup. Whit Merrifield returns and will hit leadoff tonight. I think the Springer conversation is an interesting one. We'll get into it with Steve Phillips here in a moment. But if he gets hot hitting, 4th or 5th in the lineup, do you keep him there because he found a rhythm? Or do you just naturally eventually get him back to the leadoff position, which is what he's ultimately done his whole career?
Yeah, I think you go wherever the tide takes you, man. If he's hitting well in the 4th or 5th spot, you just hold him there. Like, there comes a point in every player's career, in every sport, where it's like you just adapt to what's going well for you. And maybe right now he's not the leadoff guy, and that's okay. But if he's getting you hits lower in the lineup, why not just roll with that?
I agree with you in terms of the short term here. I think at some point, once he feels comfortable again, if you're building your lineup with the expectation of what is the best possible lineup, I'm sure you envision having George Springer leading off. And I would think Springer would probably embrace that as well. I think at some point he probably wants to get back to his natural position in the order. But I'm not doing it anytime soon. Like, let him get hot for a couple weeks. Like, if you feel like he has found it again, then go back to it. Don't be so quick to say, okay, he's been good for 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
Immediately revert back to hitting leadoff. And Whit Merrifield has been great.
Yeah.
Like, Merrifield's been outstanding. And again, they're doing this without Bichette. And you say Kikuchi on the mound tonight, you say his stats are off the charts.
Dude, this guy, what a turnaround,
Kikuchi
man.
has been an absolute stud with a beard and tight pants.
That's all he needs. That's all he needed. A little compression on the legs and a beard.
Yeah.
And there you go.
He's got the Robbie Ray cooking.
Yeah, totally different pitcher.
Yep. It's outstanding. All right, so Steve Phillips coming up on Schneider out of the lineup tonight. His take on Schneider batting leadoff last night. The Jays again red hot, winning 4 in a row, back in action in Cleveland tonight. Aaron Boone embarrassing himself last night. We'll get into that with Steve Phillips. Mike Johnson still to come later this afternoon. We've got Confirm or deny. It's a Tuesday. I'm all out of sorts here. Confirm or deny around 6:30 this afternoon. Frankie's in here. I'm Bryan Hayes. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Frankie Corrado. Steve Phillips will join us here in a moment. Jays Guardians tonight. Yusei Kikuchi on the mound. Jose Ramirez will still remain in the lineup because he is going to...
the heavyweight champ of the world?
Yeah.
That why?
Yeah, he's fighting the powers that be that, he doesn't want to be suspended those 3 games. He doesn't believe he should be suspended 3 games for basically ending Tim Anderson's career. Like that was...
Like figuratively there's no
speaking,
coming back from that.
I don't think there is, man.
Yeah,
I think that was even more embarrassing than Robin Ventura getting pumped by Nolan Ryan.
Come on.
I do. Because Anderson, yes, Ramirez got up and was not happy. I think he wasn't happy that Anderson was standing over him, and he thought he was kind of slow rolling him a little bit. And Ramirez pushed him at first, but Anderson gave the gloves off, hands up, like, I'm going to beat the hell out of you, and then gets knocked out, and then plays the hold me back game all the way into the dugout. And he is substantially bigger than Ramirez. Ramirez is like 5'6", 5'7". Nolan Ryan, yes, he was older. He's a monster.
Yeah.
Like, he was way bigger than Robin Ventura.
Dude, Ramirez is just swinging, though. He has no idea where it's going. He's no idea what he's doing. He's just swinging. He catches him with a lucky punch. I'll bet you 9 times out of 10, it's the other way around.
I think you're right, but it doesn't matter.
Did you see that square up? And how about the umpire getting out of the way, too?
As he should.
Go for it.
I like that play.
It's all you guys.
You're grown men. Yeah. You're going to throw down, then do it, right? You never see that in baseball.
No.
Like guys actually throwing punches.
No.
You never see it.
Just like, yeah.
But I'm telling you, man, like Robin Ventura, I think, was the happiest man in probably North America on Saturday. Because he said, I can take a step back, and Tim Anderson now takes that role. Yeah. I think he owns that role as the most embarrassing situation in baseball.
It's sad
when it comes to fights.
He had the square up. He looked like he was ready
to rock.
He looked like he knew what he was doing. He had the shoulder up, the hand going,
and
he gets
slap.
Caught. He gets caught. He got caught with one lucky punch, man.
Knocks him out.
That's it.
Knocks him out. And then the hold me back all the way to the dugout. Come on, Timmy.
Yeah, he's flustered.
Can't do it, man. Can't do it. Here's Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB analyst. You think Robin Ventura was happy to see that over the weekend, Steve?
Oh, I think absolutely. Probably Ventura, probably Jose Bautista.
Yes.
Probably glad to see that. And I think the most joy I'm getting out of this is how my TSN friends are loving the fighting in baseball. It is, you guys, I love listening to you talk about it. It's amazing to me. And yeah, Tim Anderson, like, dude, if you're going to challenge somebody to a fight, you can't end up on your back like in a free fall to the ground. And then he wasn't saying hold me back, he was saying hold me up.
Yeah, you're right.
When he was trying to act like he had such a dazed look on his face, and like I don't know how you get up and face the world the next day. You know what I mean? Like, how do you get out there and compete the next team you play, the next time you go on the field, the next time you play the Guardians? How does he make eye contact with Jose Ramirez? I mean, honestly, Jose Ramirez is his daddy right now. Whether he would win the fight 9 times out of 10, he won it the 1 time out of 1, and it's not going to happen again. And I mean, unless it's going to happen again, which Tim Anderson may want a rematch.
He might have to.
We can have Ramirez may say there ain't gonna be no rematch. There ain't gonna be no rematch. So I mean, I love it. I think it's so great. And the thing for the Guardians, though, is a lot of times these fights in baseball lead to a team sort of rallying together, and you get hot after that because it's like, let's go, it's us against the world. But they've lost 3 straight games because they can't hit, and, and they're going to lose their best hitter for 3 games, so it's going to make it even worse. And so, you know what? At least they won something this year, and I think we should give them a trophy. And by the way, Tom Hamilton, who's one of the great play-by-play guys in sports, the down goes Anderson, down goes Anderson call was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that was outstanding. And what a scene. And like you said, I mean, it doesn't seem to matter much for the Guardians in terms of inspiration. They are what they are, and I think the Blue Jays are going to benefit from that. Last night was certainly the case where it's not like the Jays' bats were red hot necessarily, but they found a way to pick up a win. That's 4 in a row for the Jays. And we've been captivated by this Davis Schneider story. He had an unbelievable weekend, an unprecedented weekend at Fenway. And then he bats leadoff last night. And now he's out of the lineup tonight. Like, can you reason with what has been happening here with Schneider over the last couple of days?
Yeah, it's a great story. And look, his minor league numbers are real. The thing I like is that, his great on-base percentage at the minor league level shows a real command of the strike zone, and he showed the ability to drive the ball. And at the big league level, pitchers tend to be around the plate even more, so I think it's going to serve him well. And so, I think the day off probably is, they also, they have Biggio in there. They're going to get Merrifield back in. And so, they'll mix and match as they go. And but it is a great story. And, boy, I tell you, getting those young guys that give you a spark in August, like I had Timo Perez back in the day. You may or may not remember him, but he was a guy that he's one that got thrown out in the World Series because he thought that Todd Zeal's ball got hit out of the park, and so he jogged around third, and Jeter threw him out in Game 1 of the World Series for us. But he was a little spark plug for us, and that energy that a young guy brings, especially with a really cool mustache, really, I think can spark both the young guys and old guys together, and it's a great benefit for a team.
Yeah, it was huge, and man, they needed that because, that Orioles series was lopsided. Bichette's injured, and he's still out of the lineup. Sounds like Bo's going to return pretty quickly here. But we all know about their recent history in the American League East. It was really a daunting stat. It was an embarrassing stat. It still is an embarrassing stat, even with the sweep at Fenway.
Wait a minute. If you say that, the Orioles might suspend you.
That's true.
You've got to be careful now about saying that a stat is embarrassing because it could lead to a suspension from the Baltimore Orioles.
That's right.
And so you got to be careful about it. But, yeah, I think you're right. Within the division, they've not been very good. But here's the one thing. The Blue Jays, you don't want them to get too hot because you definitely want to stay as the third wild card team. Because, right now you'll play the Minnesota Twins in the wild card round of the playoffs. If you move up and you pass either the Rays or the Astros, then the next thing you know, you're playing one of those two teams in that wild card round. So be good, but don't be too good.
Right.
I guess is the message right there.
Steve, right now, it seems like it's a lot of the other guys getting it done for the Blue Jays with Vladdy and Bo out of the lineup. Like Danny Jansen's picking balls out of the dirt at 104 miles per hour after just coming off.
His ninth inning was unbelievable.
He was just coming off the day-to-day. Like Kevin Biggio had a big game with the home run and then the play he made. Like, what have you made of some of the other guys and their performances recently with the Jays?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a sign of a good team. When it's somebody else every night, that's the sign of a good team that has depth and talent throughout. I mean, I knew, too, like a glove save and a beauty by Jansen. I mean, that inning was unbelievable. And seriously, he's going to need ice packs after that, getting 102 after 102 against them. And how about the pitch timer being such a critical factor there?
Right.
2 outs in the ninth, Rocchio, the shortstop up at the plate, he took a pitch timer violation. And I got to tell you, it felt like Hicks was a little vulnerable, but when he worked ahead 0-1 and then threw a strike on the second pitch, it really made a big difference in that at bat. So, but Hicks and Swanson and Romano give them 3 power arms at the end of the game that they didn't have a year ago with this kind of stuff. And it really is, setting them up. I will tell you that the more I hear from teams around the league, nobody really wants to play the Blue Jays in a short series. They think that they have the starting pitching, that they've got the swing and miss stuff at the end, that the lineup's starting to come to life a little bit. Now, they have to do it, and, they haven't had their real hot streak yet. It seems like they'll take 2 steps, 3 steps forward, and 1 or 2 steps back. They sort of give it back every once in a while. But it does feel like things are starting to turn a little bit in their favor because of so many different players that are contributing.
Well, it's really runners in scoring position. Like, it's the only thing stopping them statistically from being considered one of the best 4 or 5 teams in the league. And, you look, I saw the stat earlier today, with the bases empty, they have a team OPS of 762. That's 5th in the majors. With runners in scoring position, they have a 685. That's 28th. Like, it's been shocking how consistent that story's been all year, that with runners in scoring position, they just can't seem to get big hits. But, like, statistically, their arms have been outstanding recently. And I think when healthy, you bring Bichette back into the lineup, they feel pretty good 1 through 9. They start getting clutch hitting. I think they'd feel pretty good against almost anyone in a 3-game series, 5, 7-game series, whatever it is.
Yeah, you know what it is, too, is that, when you hit well without runners in scoring position, and then you don't when they are, and it becomes a thing, then everybody thinks they've got to try harder. And what then happens is you put pressure on yourself as a hitter, and you forget that the pressure is really on the pitcher in that moment. But you start to think, I have to get a hit, I have to get a hit, I have to get a hit. And so I think that, here's the thing. Here's what I would recommend, because this seems to be working in Philadelphia, is that every time there's runners in scoring position, Jays fans should just get up and start cheering in celebration. Because, Trey Turner, who's been struggling all year, they started cheering him instead of booing him in Philadelphia. And honestly, I don't know who Phillies fans are anymore or what they were doing this. But they started cheering Trey Turner, and he had a big hit on Saturday. He had a big home run on Sunday. And it looks like maybe he's relaxed a little bit. He took out a billboard thanking the fans for supporting him. And they literally gave a standing ovation, as they had been booing him relentlessly. They finally decided it's not working that way, and it never does, by the way. And, because when you get booed, you try harder. And that's worse in baseball. And so, I think that Jays fans should try that when there's runners in scoring position, just start up, standing up, giving a standing ovation and see if it takes the pressure off.
I like it.
Steve, there's something, you've said it a few times over the course of the last few seasons, where it's like the Jays will go as much as George Springer goes. Essentially, like the energy, the heartbeat of that team, like he can get this team going. Do you still see that as the case with George Springer, and how important was him to end an 0-for-35 slump?
Well, I think he's certainly part of the stopping and starting of the team. When he's right, he's getting on base, he's driving in runs, and he's that extra bit of offensive production that on the day that Vladdy or Bichette get walked, that Springer can come through, that he can be the guy that can drive in some runs, and they haven't gotten it from him. The other thing is you need him confident for the postseason, because he's such a postseason warrior. Like, he's such a producer in the postseason, but you want to get him some momentum going into the postseason to remember that feeling as to what he gets. And so I think it is really important to get him on track. It's going to take more than just breaking that streak, but, it does feel like maybe the quality of the bats are getting a little bit better. And he doesn't seem like he just seems so in between, behind the fastball, in front of the breaking ball, and that's the worst place you can be. If you're going to get that thing, just commit to one of the pitches. You've got a better chance of getting a hit. But when you're in between, it means you can't hit either. And that's where he has found himself right now.
How do you think they handle the Springer, leadoff situation moving forward? In other words, he's batting 4th tonight. He's been batting 4th, 5th. He had a great weekend at Fenway. I think he had a hit last night. Like, if he gets red hot here, do you just keep him there because he's red hot, or is the whole plan here get him red hot and then flip him back to the leadoff role?
Yeah, I think that if whatever they're doing that's winning, I think is what you keep doing. And Merrifield's been so good in the leadoff spot with what he's done. And, and then Springer being down a bit is going to have a lot of traffic on the bases in front of him, which could get him some fastballs to hit. And so, and we'll see. When Bichette comes back, it may change the whole dynamic a little bit of the lineup. But I think it was the right move. And people say, well, you know what, it's going to make him uncomfortable. Good. You know what? So what if he's uncomfortable? When a guy's struggling, I'm not sure what he needs is, they tried comfort for a long time, and that didn't seem to work. So trying something different, I thought, was the right thing to do. And it seemed to be the right thing for the team, right, to get Merrifield up there where his on base was capitalizing into runs being scored, both with his power production and with the ability to just score and run on the bases. And so I think they did, and it's not easy to do when you got a veteran like Springer with a pedigree, but it's the right thing, and he's a good teammate. He'll handle it the right way. And, he knows the solution to it. If you don't like it, just play better.
Yeah. Great stuff, Steve. Always great having you on, buddy. We'll do it again soon.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Talk to you then.
Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB analyst. He likes our approach to fights in baseball.
Yes. We're hockey guys.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, down in the U.S., a lot of them, this is appalling. Throw them out of the league. Come on. It's all good. It rarely happens. Like, this isn't something that needs some sort of summit. All these fights are breaking out. It's not happening. It's a one-off.
The outrage on that, I don't get. I get the outrage on the Baltimore commentator who got suspended.
Kevin Brown, the play-by-play guy who was... If you're not familiar with it, do we have a little clip? Okay, why don't we play a taste of it that he's been suspended by the team owner. And he works for the team. Like, that is the way team broadcasters work. It operates. Yeah. I mean, that's how sports works. And generally, you get a lot of guys who are very pro the home team. 100% of them are homers. There's just different layers of homerism when it comes to a call. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm talking the team guys. There's national calls that are not leaning one way or the other.
It's like when Henny was doing Leafs TV. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like Henny's not going to dump on any of the players. It's always good stuff. Here's the boys. They're having a great time.
Exactly. And that's not to suggest if the team's awful, play-by-play and color commentators aren't going to admit that they're awful, of course. But it's not going to be talk radio like hot take artists like this team's a joke and really goof on them type of stuff. They're more careful because they understand who they're employed by. But Kevin Brown, who's been the play-by-play voice of the Orioles, and the Orioles are the positive story in baseball this year, this is what he had to say prior to a series down at the Trop against Tampa that led to him being suspended by the team.
It's been a minute. The Orioles split a two-gamer with the Rays in June. They had lost their last 15 series here at Tropicana Field. You have to go back to when our now colleague Brad Brock picked up the win in the series finale, June 25th, 2017, the last time the Orioles won a series here at St. Pete. Already got 3-2 at the Trop this year after winning 3 of 18 the previous 3 years combined.
So simply reading a board.
He said nothing wrong.
And it's a completely factual thing. Very difficult to find consensus online. Almost impossible. Like, the sky is blue. There will be people on Twitter saying, no, it's not.
How dare you?
Yeah, and they're just people looking to be a contrarian. This one is across the board. Everyone is flabbergasted that would lead to some sort of issue with ownership because he's just stating facts. There's nothing to it.
It just
He's not goofing on the team or anything.
No, and it just reeks of a team that's insignificant and thin-skinned and a small market, and it actually puts a bad name on small market teams because, let's be honest, they get the short end of the stick, right? They don't get the national games, all that kind of stuff. The Orioles, a week ago, everyone's talking about how they've drafted, they've developed. It's like they haven't spent that much money. It's such a great story, and then they go out and the owner does this garbage.
Yeah.
It makes them so irrelevant in the grand scheme of things and insignificant.
It's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
It is. It's just so unnecessary because you're like, again, I can't reason with it in any context. But let's say Baltimore's the worst team in baseball this year, and he's just accentuating that they're still awful. Then I might be able to reason with the insecurities. Like the thin skin or the fact that there's like an inferiority complex, but you're an awesome team.
Yeah.
You're leading the best division in baseball.
If anything, what he was talking about was like a compliment. Like, they broke the streak. They're playing so well. They broke the streak.
How great is this that our Baltimore Orioles are back and we're a great team again? It's crazy.
Bonkers.
It's a crazy, crazy story. Mike Johnson in 15 minutes. Confirm and deny later this afternoon. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Mike Johnson in about 10 minutes on Erik Karlsson, Kyle Dubas. Number of things to get into with Johnny. Saw the NFL Network wrapped up their top 100 list, asking players around the league to vote on who the best players in the league are. Not surprisingly, Patrick Mahomes at 1. I think we can ask Johnny this. Johnny's pretty well-versed. He's a big sports guy. I don't think there's a clear-cut number 1 guy in the NBA. I think Giannis would be considered the best, but like Jokic is tough to look past.
Yeah.
Embiid just won the MVP. If KD's healthy, if Steph is healthy, Like it seems like it's more up for debate. You can make different arguments.
Yes.
It is not up for debate in the NBA or in the NHL, NFL, and Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
It's McDavid, Mahomes, Ohtani. But in the next hour, we'll rank who we think has a stranglehold on that number one spot more than the other two, I guess.
Who's more dominant in their sport?
Yeah, who do you think
to the rest?
is the most definitive number one?
Okay.
Ohtani in baseball, McDavid in hockey, Mahomes in football. So think on that. We'll get into it in the next hour.
All right.
Maybe Messi in MLS.
Oh,
how about Messi continues
our
to
boy
slide?
in MLS?
Man,
play
this
on
guy,
turf though, eh? And I don't blame him.
Yeah, he's like, why would I? Amateur hour.
I'm not playing on that turf. Give me good grass.
Yeah,
I'm not playing.
That's probably in the contract.
Yeah.
Like if your field is garbage, I'm not playing.
And you know what? If you're another owner, get grass on your field.
Yeah, exactly. You want Messi to come?
Don't cheap out.
Yeah. He's not playing on some garbage pitch.
Yeah.
Guy's got what's he got? 7 goals now? Unbelievable. They're 4-0. Like they sucked before he showed up, and now they can't lose. Or they can't win. They can't lose.
They can't lose. This guy's unbelievable, man. He's playing against the guys that are inferior to him. What are you gonna do?
Valid.
Yeah.
But hey, he's here and he's playing and they're winning. Hour 2 coming up. Mike Johnson will join us. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.